The Galactic Assembly had ruled the known universe for 12,000 years. 47 species worked together under one government. They shared trade routes and laws and kept peace across 1 million star systems. Their great station called floated at the center of everything. No war had touched its halls in living memory. The Assembly believed they understood power. They believed they knew what strength looked like. They were wrong. Admiral Dawson stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute and watched the stars stretch into lines as her ship entered hyperspace. She was 53 years old with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen both the best and worst of humanity. Behind her flagship came 211 other vessels. They moved in perfect formation like a flock of metal birds flying toward destiny. Humanity had spent 80 years building this fleet in secret. They had found faster-than-light travel late compared to other species. They had watched the galaxy from the outer rim and learned its ways before making themselves known. Now the time for hiding was over. Commander Cole approached the Admiral with a data pad in her hand. She was younger than Dawson by 20 years but carried herself with the same quiet confidence. "The long-range sensors have detected station," she reported. "We will arrive in 6 hours." Dawson nodded slowly. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a young officer reading reports about alien civilizations. Humanity had always known they were not alone. The question was never if they would meet their neighbors but when and how. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "All ships maintain formation. We go in together." On the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch, Ambassador Leo Grant prepared his speech for the 100th time. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a voice that could calm angry crowds. His job was to make first contact peaceful. His job was to convince 47 species that humanity came as friends. He knew the fleet behind him made that message complicated. "The Assembly does not know we are coming," his aide reminded him. "Their sensors will detect us soon." Grant smiled without humor. "That is the point," he said. "We could have sent a single ship and begged for an audience. Instead, we arrive with enough firepower to challenge their entire military. We are not begging. We are introducing ourselves as equals." Far across the galaxy on station, High Commander of the received the first sensor readings with confusion. They were the military backbone of the Assembly. They had protected galactic peace for thousands of years. Himself had served for 2 centuries and fought in dozens of border conflicts. He thought he had seen everything. The censor officer was trembling when she brought him the data. "Sir," she said, "we are detecting a fleet approaching from the outer rim. Over 200 vessels." Frowned. "That is impossible. No species in that region has more than a handful of ships. Check your equipment." "I have checked it 3 times, sir. The readings are accurate. The ships are using a form of faster-than-light travel we have never seen before. They will arrive at within hours." Felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had spent his life believing they were the greatest military force in the galaxy. He had trained his soldiers to face any threat. But 200 ships from an unknown species was not a threat he had ever imagined. He activated the emergency channel to the Assembly Council. "Councilors," he announced, "we have a situation." The council chamber erupted in chaos when delivered his report. Representatives from dozens of species shouted questions and demands. The known throughout the galaxy for their calm, analytical minds, ran calculations on their devices and grew pale at the results. The master traders who had grown rich on galactic commerce began quietly contacting their ships and telling them to prepare for evacuation. Counselor of the was the oldest being in the chamber. Her species had been among the founders of the Assembly. She had seen civilizations rise and fall across. She raised one wrinkled hand, and the room gradually fell silent. "We know nothing yet," she said in her slow, careful voice. "Perhaps these newcomers come in peace. Perhaps they wish to trade or join our community. We should not assume the worst." High Commander shook his head. "With respect, Counselor, no species builds a fleet of that size for peaceful purposes. They are coming to conquer us or intimidate us. Either way, we must prepare for war." Before could respond, a new signal appeared on the main screen. It was a transmission from the approaching fleet. Every being in the chamber turned to watch as a human face appeared for the first time in galactic history. Ambassador Grant smiled warmly at the camera. His message had been carefully prepared to seem friendly but confident. "Greetings to the Galactic Assembly," he said. "I am Ambassador Leo Grant representing the United Human Federation. We come in peace and friendship. We have watched your civilization from afar and admired what you have built. We wish to join your community as partners and allies." He paused to let his words sink in. "We understand that our arrival may cause concern. Our fleet is large because we have learned that the universe can be dangerous. We do not seek conflict, but we will not pretend to be weak. We ask only for the chance to speak with you face to face." The transmission ended. Silence filled the council chamber. Then spoke with barely controlled anger in his voice. "They mock us," he said. "They bring a war fleet to our doorstep and speak of peace. This is a threat wrapped in pretty words." Counselor studied the frozen image of the human ambassador on the screen. She had lived long enough to recognize many things that younger beings missed. She saw something in that human face that troubled her deeply. It was not cruelty or greed or the hunger for conquest. It was patience. It was the look of someone who had planned for this moment for a very long time. "What do you suggest we do?" she asked. "We tell them to send one ship," he replied. "One small vessel with their ambassador. The rest of their fleet stays outside our territory. We negotiate from a position of strength." Nodded slowly. "Send the message," she said. "Let us see how they respond." The message traveled across space at the speed of light. Admiral Dawson received it on the bridge of the Resolute and read it twice before responding. Commander Cole watched her face carefully but could read nothing there. "They want us to show weakness," Dawson said quietly. "They want us to come begging like children asking permission to enter." "What will you do?" Cole asked. Dawson turned to face her fleet through the main. 212 ships waited for her order. 80 years of human engineering and sacrifice floated in the darkness. Millions of crew members trusted her to make the right choice. "Signal all ships," she commanded. "We advance together, full fleet formation. The universe is about to learn who we are." The human moved as one toward the heart of galactic civilization. History was about to change forever. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation around station. 212 vessels appeared in the darkness like stars being born. They surrounded the great station in a ring of metal and power that made every sensor on every ship scream warnings. Admiral Dawson stood on the bridge of the Resolute and watched the alien station through her. Was beautiful in its own way. It was a massive structure of curved metal and glowing lights built by species who had mastered space travel when humans still lived in caves. But today, it looked small compared to the fleet that surrounded it. "All ships report position secured," Commander Cole announced. "We have complete coverage of the station. Their defense grid has activated, but it poses no threat to our vessels." Dawson nodded. She had expected the defenses to activate. She would have been disappointed if they had not. "Open a channel to the station," she ordered. "Let them know we mean no harm." Inside the Assembly Council chamber, panic had taken hold. Representatives from dozens of species shouted and argued and demanded action. The military officers clustered around High Commander, awaiting orders that he could not give. The traders had abandoned their seats and were rushing toward their ships. They sat frozen at their stations, their analytical minds struggling to process what their sensors showed them. Counselor remained in her seat at the center of the chaos. She watched where the human fleet hung motionless in space. She had lived for 3,000 years and seen many things that others called impossible, but she had never seen anything like this. "Their weapons are powered but not targeting us," an officer reported. "They are holding position. They are not advancing." slammed his fist against the console beside him. "This is an invasion," he shouted. "They have surrounded our most important station with a war fleet. How can you say they are not attacking?" "Because we are still alive," replied calmly. "If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done so already. A fleet of that size could reduce this station to dust in seconds. They have chosen not to. That choice is significant." Before could argue, the communication screen flickered to life. A human woman appeared on the display. She had brown hair and steady eyes and wore a simple uniform with no decorations or medals. She looked like someone who had nothing to prove. "This is Commander Cole of the United Human Federation," she said. "I am leading our first contact team. We request permission to dock with your station and speak with your council in person. We come unarmed and in peace." Stepped forward before anyone could stop him. "You surround us with warships and speak of peace," he demanded. "You bring enough firepower to destroy our civilization and claim to be unarmed. Do you think we are fools?" Cole's expression did not change. "We think you are cautious," she replied. "We would be cautious too in your position. That is why we want to meet face to face. It is easy to fear what you do not understand. Let us help you understand." Raised her hand to silence. "Send your shuttle, Commander Cole. You may dock at Base 7, but know that if your intentions are hostile, we will fight with everything we have." Cole nodded respectfully. "We would expect nothing less, Counselor." Cole out. The shuttle departed from the Resolute 30 minutes later. Commander Cole sat in the passenger compartment with Ambassador Grant and Sergeant, who led a small security team of 4 soldiers. They carried no visible weapons, though every alien who saw them would assume they were armed somehow. Grant reviewed his notes one more time. He had prepared for this moment his entire career. Every word he spoke would shape how the galaxy viewed humanity for generations to come. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on him like a physical force. "Remember," Cole told him quietly, "we are not here to beg or threaten. We are here to introduce ourselves. Let them see who we really are." Grant smiled despite his nerves. "And who are we exactly?" Cole looked out the window at the approaching station. "We are the species that refused to be afraid," she said. "We are the species that looked at a dangerous universe and decided to become dangerous ourselves. Not because we wanted to hurt anyone, but because we wanted to survive." The shuttle docked smoothly at Base 7. The airlock opened to reveal a corridor lined with soldiers in full combat armor. Their weapons were raised and ready. Behind them stood a group of assembly counselors, including Cole stepped out first. She walked past the soldiers without looking at them and stopped directly in front of. The commander towered over her by nearly a meter, but she did not seem intimidated. "Hi, Commander," she said calmly. "Thank you for allowing us to dock. I hope we can put your concerns to rest." Studied her with open suspicion. "Your fleet surrounds our station. Your weapons could destroy us at any moment. What concerns could we possibly have?" Cole met his gaze without flinching. "You are concerned that we are conquerors," she said. "You are concerned that we have come to take what you have built. You are concerned that your way of life is about to end." She paused to let her words sink in. "Those concerns are reasonable," she continued, "but they are wrong. We have not come to take anything from you. We have come to offer something." Ambassador Grant stepped forward. "For 80 years we watched your civilization from the outer rim," he said. "We saw your trade routes and your laws and your council chambers. We saw how you maintained peace among so many different species. We admired what you built." He gestured toward the viewport where the human fleet was visible in the distance. "But we also saw your failures," he continued. "We saw border worlds burn while your council debated. We saw peaceful species conquered by aggressive neighbors while you argued about jurisdiction. We saw the cracks in your system." Scales flushed with anger. "You dare criticize us? You who have only just crawled out of your home system." "We dare because we care," Grant replied firmly. "We are not here to replace your assembly. We are here to strengthen it. We are here to fill the gaps in your protection. We are here to make sure that no more innocent worlds burn while bureaucrats debate. Counselor stepped between them before the confrontation could escalate. These are bold claims, she said carefully. How do we know you can deliver what you promise? Cole smiled for the first time since arriving. You know because of what you see outside your windows, she said. You know because we built 200 warships in secret while the rest of the galaxy thought we were primitives. You know because we are standing here right now having this conversation instead of simply taking what we want. She let the silence stretch for a moment. Humanity does not make empty promises, she concluded. We say what we mean and we mean what we say. All we ask is the chance to prove it. Looked at the humans for a long moment. Then she turned to the other counselors. I believe we should hear what they have to say, she announced. Let us move to the council chamber. Opened his mouth to object but silenced him with a look. The fate of the galaxy may depend on what happens next, she said quietly. We cannot afford to let pride guide our decisions. The group moved through the station toward the council chamber. Human boots walked on alien metal for the first time in history. Outside the windows, the human fleet maintained its silent watch over the heart of galactic civilization. The universe had beheld unimaginable power. Now it would learn what that power intended. The council chamber of station was the largest room Commander Cole had ever seen. It stretched upward for hundreds of meters with seats arranged in rising circles around a central platform. Representatives from 47 species filled those seats. Some were tall and thin, with multiple limbs. Others were short and covered in scales or fur or feathers. A few existed in special containers that provided atmospheres different from the station's standard. All of them watched the humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. Ambassador Leo Grant stood at the center of the platform and felt the weight of countless alien eyes upon him. He had prepared for this moment his entire life, but nothing could truly prepare someone to speak for all of humanity. Counselor called the chamber to order with a single word in her ancient language. The noise faded to silence. She gestured for Grant to speak. Grant took a deep breath. Honored members of the Galactic Assembly, he began. My name is Leo Grant, and I speak today for the United Human Federation. We are a young species by your standards. We discovered faster-than-light travel only 80 years ago, but in that time we have built something remarkable. He paused to let his translator devices carry his words to every corner of the chamber. We built our fleet in secret because we understood a truth that many peaceful species learned too late. The universe is dangerous. The strong survive and the weak perish. We chose to be strong. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. High Commander leaned forward in his seat with barely contained hostility. Grant continued calmly, but strength alone is not enough. We have studied your assembly and learned from both your successes and your failures. You have maintained peace among dozens of species for 12,000 years. That is an achievement worthy of admiration. But you have also allowed suffering to continue when intervention was difficult or unpopular. A counselor stood and interrupted. You accuse us of failure while threatening us with warships, he shouted. This is arrogance beyond measure. Grant shook his head. We are not threatening you. If we wanted to threaten you, we would have fired first and negotiated later. Instead, we are here talking. We are here offering partnership. We are here because we believe that together we can build something better than either of us could build alone. Counselor raised her hand to restore order. You speak of partnership, she said. What exactly do you propose? Before Grant could answer, stood and addressed the chamber. I invoke the trial of capability, he announced. If these humans wish to join our assembly, they must prove their worth according to our ancient traditions. Let them demonstrate what they claim to be. The chamber erupted in discussion. Cole leaned close to Grant and whispered quickly. The trial of capability is a test, she explained. Any species seeking membership must show what they can contribute to the assembly. It has not been invoked in 3,000 years. Grant nodded slowly. He had expected something like this. Wanted to expose humanity as weak or primitive. He wanted to prove that the human fleet was all show and no substance. "We accept," Grant announced loudly. Smiled in a way that showed too many teeth. "Then let us see what humanity can do." Admiral Dawson received the news on the bridge of the Resolute. She had been waiting for this moment. She had planned for it. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "All ships prepare for demonstration. Pattern Omega-7." Commander Cole returned to the flagship to coordinate the exercise. The entire Assembly Council was invited to observe from the safety of station. Special viewing screens were set up throughout the chamber so that every species could witness what was about to happen. Stood at the front of the observation area with his arms crossed. He fully expected the humans to fail. He had seen young species attempt to impress the assembly before. They always fell short. The demonstration began with the Dreadnought constellation moving to face an uninhabited asteroid field. The massive ship was over 2 kilometers long with weapons arrays covering every surface. It looked like a city designed for war. Admiral Dawson's voice came through the station speakers. "Constellation, you may fire when ready." The Dreadnought's main batteries activated. Beams of focused energy lanced out across space and struck the asteroid field. In 17 seconds, 300 kilometers of rock and metal were reduced to dust and vapor. The display screens showed the destruction in perfect detail. Silence filled the council chamber. They ran calculations on their devices, and their faces went pale. The firepower they had just witnessed exceeded anything in the Assembly's arsenal. A single human dreadnought had more destructive capability than the entire battle fleet. But Dawson was not finished. "Corvette Squadron," she commanded, "begin maneuver demonstration." 30 small human ships broke formation and began flying patterns that should have been impossible. They accelerated and turned and stopped in ways that physics. Their inertial dampeners allowed maneuvers that would crush any known species into paste. The corvettes wove between asteroids and each other at speeds that the Assembly's best pilots could never match. The carrier Independence launched 600 fighter craft in under 4 minutes. The small ships swarmed into space like angry insects and then returned to their mothership in perfect order. The Assembly had never seen carrier operations performed with such speed and precision. His confidence was crumbling. He could see it on the faces of the other counselors. They were not watching a demonstration anymore. They were watching the end of their military superiority. Then Admiral Dawson delivered the final shock. "Dr. Perry," she announced, "please begin medical demonstration." The medical frigate Hope transmitted a live feed to every screen in the council chamber. Dr. Perry was a calm man with gentle hands who looked like he belonged in a peaceful hospital rather than a warship. He stood in a surgical bay surrounded by human Marines in various stages of treatment. "Honored counselors," Perry said, "I want to show you what humanity has done to itself." The screens showed Marines recovering from injuries that would kill any assembly species. A woman was regrowing a lost arm through accelerated cellular regeneration. A man was receiving a synthetic heart that would beat for 200 years without maintenance. Another soldier was having neural bridges installed that would allow her to control machinery with her thoughts. "We do not just build powerful ships," Perry explained. "We have rebuilt ourselves. Human soldiers can survive damage that would destroy your best warriors. We heal faster. We last longer. We endure more." The transmission ended. The council chamber was completely silent. Every alien present was trying to process what they had witnessed. Humanity had not just arrived with a powerful fleet. They had arrived as something new, something that the galaxy had never seen before. Counselor finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. "I believe," she said slowly, "that the humans have passed the trial of capability." Said nothing. He stared at the where the human fleet still hung motionless in space. For 200 years, he had protected the galaxy as a commander. For 200 years, he had believed his people were the greatest warriors in existence. That belief had just died. Admiral Dawson watched the reaction from the bridge of the Resolute. She felt no joy in what she had done. Intimidation was not her goal. Understanding was her goal. She wanted the assembly to see humanity clearly without illusions or false assumptions. Now they see, she said quietly to herself. Now they must decide what to do about it. The universe had beheld unimaginable power. The next step would determine whether that power brought peace or war. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly began 3 hours after the human demonstration ended. Representatives from all 47 member species gathered in the council chamber to debate what they had witnessed. The atmosphere was tense and afraid. Counselor presided over the session from her elevated seat at the center of the room. She had lived for 3,000 years and guided the assembly through countless crises, but she had never faced a decision quite like this one. The delegation spoke first. Their lead representative was a thin being with large dark eyes that never seemed to blink. "We have analyzed the human capabilities," he announced. "Their fleet possesses firepower equivalent to 7 times our combined military forces. Their medical technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of our most advanced species. Their ship maneuverability exceeds anything we thought possible." He paused to let his words sink in. Logically, he continued, "We have only one option. We must ally with humanity. The alternative is too dangerous to consider." High Commander rose from his seat in the military section. The commander had been silent since the demonstration, but his anger had only grown. "You speak of alliance," he said bitterly. "What you mean is surrender. You want us to bow before these newcomers and beg for mercy." "No one is suggesting surrender," replied calmly. "We are discussing partnership." "Partnership requires equality," shot back. "How can we be equal partners with a species that could destroy us whenever they choose? They hold all the power. Any agreement we make will be on their terms." A counselor stood to address the chamber. "Perhaps we should consider what the humans actually want," she suggested. "They have not demanded anything yet. They have not threatened us. They have only asked to join our community." Laughed without humor, and you believe them. A species builds the most powerful fleet in galactic history and you think they want friendship. They want control. They want to rule us all. The debate continued for hours. Species argued and shouted and threatened to walk out. Old alliances were tested and new fears were revealed. Through it all, the human delegation waited patiently in their assigned seats near the edge of the chamber. Commander Cole watched the chaos with a calm expression. She had expected this reaction. Fear made people irrational. Fear made them see threats where none existed. Ambassador Grant leaned close to her. "They are going to tear themselves apart," he whispered. "We need to say something." Cole nodded. "Wait for the right moment." The right moment came when Counselor finally called for silence. The ancient being looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical age. She had seen so many arguments like this one. She had seen so many species destroy themselves through fear and suspicion. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "we should hear from the humans directly. Ambassador Grant, will you address our concerns?" Grant rose from his seat and walked to the central platform. Every eye in the chamber followed him. He could feel their fear and anger pressing against him like a physical weight, but he did not let it show on his face. "Honored counselors," he began, "I understand your concerns. If our positions were reversed, I would feel the same way. A stranger arrives with overwhelming power and asks for trust. That is a difficult thing to give." He paused and looked around the chamber. "Let me tell you about human history. We are a young species, but we have lived through horrors that most of you cannot imagine. We fought wars that killed millions of our own kind. We built weapons capable of destroying our entire planet. We came within moments of ending ourselves more than once. His voice grew stronger as he continued, but we survived. We learned. We looked at what we had done to each other and decided to become better. The fleet outside your windows was not built for conquest. It was built because we swore that we would never be helpless again. Never again would humans suffer because they were too weak to defend themselves. Interrupted from his seat, "Pretty words," he said, "but words are easy. What will you actually do with all that power?" Grant turned to face him directly. "We will protect the innocent. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. We will stand beside any species that accepts our friendship and face any threat together." "And what about those who reject your friendship?" demanded. "Nothing," Grant replied simply. The chamber fell silent, stared at him with confusion. "Nothing," he repeated. "You expect us to believe that you would simply accept rejection and walk away." Grant smiled slightly. "High Commander, we have waited 80 years to make this contact. We are patient people. If the Assembly rejects our offer, we will return to our territory and continue building. We will continue growing stronger. We will continue watching and waiting." He let the implication hang in the air. "We are not going anywhere," he continued. "Whether you accept us as partners today or in 100 years, humanity will still be here. The only question is what kind of relationship we will have." Counselor leaned forward in her seat. "You spoke of protecting the innocent," she said. "You spoke of defending those who cannot defend themselves. What did you mean by that?" Grant gestured toward where the human fleet was visible. "We have seen what happens on the borders of your territory," he explained. "We have seen raider fleets attack civilian ships while your patrols are too slow to respond. We have seen entire colonies destroyed because your council could not agree on intervention." He shook his head with genuine sadness. "We are offering to fill those gaps. Any world under human protection will never stand alone. Any convoy with human escorts will reach its destination safely. Any aggressor who threatens our allies will face consequences they cannot imagine." A murmur ran through the assembly. The offer was remarkable. For thousands of years, the assembly had struggled to protect its outer territories. The military was spread too thin. The council was too slow to act. Species on the borders lived in fear of raiders and invaders. "And what do you want in return?" asked. Grant spread his hands. "Trade, friendship, a seat on your council, the same things any member species receives. We do not ask for control or special privileges. We ask only to be treated as equals despite our greater military strength." Shook his head in disbelief. "You cannot be serious. You have the power to demand anything and you ask only for equality." "We have the power to demand everything," Grant agreed. "But that would make us conquerors. That would make us the thing we swore never to become. We want to be partners. We want to build something lasting. You cannot build anything lasting on a foundation of fear and resentment." The chamber was silent as the counselors considered his words. Cole watched their faces and saw something changing in their expressions. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Hope, perhaps, or at least the possibility of hope. Counselor finally spoke. "We will vote on human membership," she announced. "All species will have 1 hour to consult with their governments before casting their decision. This session is temporarily adjourned." The counselors began filing out of the chamber in small groups. Some shot suspicious glances at the human delegation. Others nodded with cautious respect. A few even approached to ask quiet questions about trade opportunities and defense agreements. Cole stood beside Grant and watched them go. "That was well done," she said quietly. Grant shook his head. "I meant every word. We did not come here to conquer anyone. We came here to find our place in the universe." Cole looked out at the distant fleet. "I know," she said, "but they need to believe it. That is the hard part." 1 hour later, the council reconvened. Counselor called for the vote. One by one, the species announced their decisions. The voted yes. The voted yes. 32 other species voted yes with varying degrees of enthusiasm. The abstained could not bring himself to accept the humans, but he could not vote against them either. 12 other species followed his example. When the counting was finished, Counselor rose to announce the result. By a majority vote, she declared, the United Human Federation is hereby accepted as a full member of the Galactic Assembly. Welcome to the galactic community. The chamber erupted in a mixture of cheers and nervous applause. History had been made. For the first time in 3,000 years, a new species had joined the assembly. Admiral Dawson received the news on the bridge of the Resolute. She allowed herself a small smile before turning to her crew. Signal all ships, she ordered. Stand down from combat readiness. We are no longer visitors here. The human had arrived. The universe would never be the same. 6 months passed since humanity joined the Galactic Assembly. In that time, everything changed and nothing changed. The station still floated at the center of galactic civilization. The Council still debated and argued over trade routes and border disputes. The still pursued profit and the still calculated probabilities. Life continued as it always had. But outside the station windows, the human fleet remained. 50 ships had been assigned to permanent patrol around while the rest spread throughout assembly territory. Human vessels now traveled the major trade routes. Human marines now trained alongside soldiers. Human engineers now shared technology that the assembly had never imagined. Admiral Dawson stood on the observation deck of the Resolute and watched a joint patrol departing for the border. 3 human corvettes flew in formation with 2 cruisers. 6 months ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. Now it was becoming routine. Commander Cole approached with a data pad in her hand. The latest reports from the border, she announced. Raider activity has dropped by 90% since we established our patrol stations. 3 pirate bases have been destroyed. Civilian casualties are at their lowest point in 2 centuries. Dawson nodded with satisfaction. That was always the goal, she said. Protect the innocent. Show them what human friendship means. Cole smiled slightly. The merchants are certainly happy. Their insurance costs have fallen dramatically now that human ships escort their convoys. On the station itself, Ambassador Leo Grant had established a permanent diplomatic mission. His staff worked around the clock to negotiate trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Human art and music had become popular among several assembly species. Human food had sparked a culinary revolution in the station restaurants. Human ideas were spreading through galactic civilization like seeds carried by wind. Counselor visited Grant's office one afternoon to discuss the latest integration efforts. The ancient being moved slowly these days, but her mind remained sharp. She settled into a chair designed for beings of various shapes and sizes, and studied the human ambassador with curious eyes. You have kept every promise, she observed. Your ships protect the borders. Your technology improves our infrastructure. Your people work beside ours without conflict or complaint. Grant poured her a cup of tea from a human teapot. It was nothing, he said modestly. We simply did what we said we would do. Accepted the cup and inhaled the unfamiliar aroma. That is precisely what surprises me, she admitted. In my 3,000 years, I have seen many species make promises. Very few keep them as faithfully as you have. She took a small sip of the tea and her eyes widened with pleasure. This is quite good, she said. Another human gift to the galaxy. Grant laughed softly. We have much more to share, he assured her. Give us time. Across the station in the military section, High Commander sat alone in his quarters and stared at the wall. He had not spoken publicly since the vote 6 months ago. He had not participated in council sessions or military planning. He had simply watched and waited and tried to understand what had happened to his universe. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. He considered ignoring it but eventually called for the visitor to enter. To his surprise, Admiral Dawson walked through the doorway. rose slowly to his feet. "Admiral," he said stiffly, "this is unexpected." Dawson nodded politely. "I asked Counselor where I could find you. She said you had been keeping to yourself lately. I thought we should talk." Gestured to a chair but remained standing himself. What could we possibly have to discuss? Dawson sat down and looked up at the towering commander. "Fear," she said simply, "your fear and mine." Scales flushed with anger. "I am not afraid of you." "Yes, you are," Dawson replied calmly. "And that is reasonable. 6 months ago, everything you believed about your place in the universe was proven wrong. They were no longer the greatest military power. Your people were no longer the protectors of galactic civilization. That is a difficult thing to accept." She paused to let her words sink in. "I know because I have felt the same fear," she continued. "When I was a young officer, we discovered evidence of other civilizations in the galaxy. We realized we were not alone. We realized there were species out there who were older and more advanced and potentially hostile." Remained silent, but she could see that he was listening. "For decades we lived with that fear," Dawson explained. "We built our fleet in secret because we were terrified of what we might find when we finally ventured into the wider galaxy. We imagined conquest and enslavement and extinction. We prepared for the worst because we could not bear to be caught unprepared." She smiled slightly. "And then we arrived here and found something we did not expect. We found a civilization that had maintained peace for 12,000 years. We found species working together despite their differences. We found hope." Finally sat down across from her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to understand," Dawson said. "We did not come here to replace you or humiliate you. We came here because we were afraid of being alone in a dangerous universe. We came here to find friends and allies. We came here to build something that would last beyond our own short lives." She leaned forward in her chair. "You have protected this galaxy for 200 years. Your service has meaning. Your experience has value. We do not want to take that away from you. We want to work beside you." Was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke in a voice that was softer than before. "What do you want from me?" Dawson stood and extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. "I want you to lead the first joint task force," she said. "Human ships and ships working together under your command. Show the galaxy what we can accomplish as partners." Stared at her hand. In his entire career, no one had ever offered him such trust. No one had ever treated him as an equal rather than a subordinate or a rival. Slowly he reached out and took her hand. His grip was strong but not hostile. His eyes held a new emotion that he could not quite name. "I accept," he said. 2 weeks later, the first joint task force launched from station, commanded from his flagship with a human advisor at his side. They patrolled the most dangerous border in assembly space and faced threats that had terrorized that region for centuries. Together, they defeated enemies that neither species could have handled alone. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The humans were working together. The two greatest military powers had become allies. Raiders and pirates began abandoning their bases rather than face the combined fleet. On station, Counselor watched the reports with quiet satisfaction. She had lived long enough to see many impossible things become reality. But the sight of human and ships flying in formation filled her ancient heart with something close to joy. Commander Cole found her on the observation deck one evening. The station lights had dimmed to simulate night, and the stars shone bright through the viewports. "You look pleased," Cole observed. Nodded slowly. "I am pleased. For 12,000 years we have struggled to maintain peace. We have argued and compromised and sometimes failed. But we kept trying because we believed that cooperation was better than conflict." She gestured toward the distant patrol ships visible through the viewport. "Now you have shown us what true cooperation can achieve. You arrived with power beyond imagination and chose to share it rather than use it against us. That gives me hope for the future." Cole stood beside her and watched the ships move through space. "We came looking for our place in the universe," she said quietly. "I think we found it." The human remained at the heart of galactic civilization, not as conquerors or masters, but as partners and protectors. The universe had beheld unimaginable power and learned that power did not have to mean destruction. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy was stronger for it.